So I always like to take a moment to really talk about what it's like to heal postpartum. I feel like this is one of those topics that we tend to not talk about enough. So at this point in time, you have just given birth and you are in this beautiful recovery phase. You are probably feeling the highest emotions of love and just overwhelming joy. It's also a little bit overwhelming on the sense of responsibility and accountability that you now have with your new baby. So I like to take a look at what the physical recovery looks like, just as a mental reminder of where your body's really at. When you give birth, baby comes first, and then right after you have a large placenta. And it is, it's like this big. So when that is birthed and it comes right after baby's birth, that means that you've left this large of a wound inside of your uterus. And every single time you breastfeed, you're going to feel small little micro contractions, and that's helping contract the uterus back down to size. It's also helping heal this really large wound. So every time you're pumping and or breastfeeding, you're going to start to feel tiny little cramping contractions, almost like menstrual cramps, a little stronger. And that's really the healing of getting the uterus back down to what pre-pregnancy looked like. But you're going to have bleeding during this process. So as you're bleeding, it is a direct indication of how your healing is going. If you have heavy bleeding right after birth, that's when the wound is the largest. Every day is getting a little bit better. Around week 2 or so, you really start to see bleeding start to go away, and it becomes much lighter. Color will be changing. It's not bright red anymore. We're going to start to see the blood change in color. That also means that you're going to feel a little bit more energy. Do not take advantage of that energy to do something like exercise or go on a walk or outdo yourself by taking too many flights of stairs. You will feel good, and you might feel like you've been stuck in the house for too long and a little bit frustrated. But if you overdo yourself, what happens immediately is you break that wound back open, and then you start to see red bleeding again. And this means that you've not really listened to your body well enough, and you're overexerting yourself. So if you ever see your bleeding increase, it means that you're doing too much physical activity, and you want to get to the point where you completely get to no bleeding, which I see a lot of moms right around 3 weeks get to little to no bleeding at all. But don't overdo it. Understand that there's a very large wound inside of your uterus that is really trying to get back down to healing. So give it the time that it needs, just like you would any other wound on your body. You just can't see this one. So look for the bleeding as your sign. And then note that by week 3, you're going to start to feel kind of those night sweats, and it's just really hot and almost a little bit emotional around week 3. It's because your hormones are trying to come back down to a postpartum level instead of a pregnancy level. They really heighten all the way up right before birth, and we want to get those hormones back down to a little bit more of a breastfeeding postpartum level. And then once you're done breastfeeding, they drop down a little bit more again to your pre-pregnancy hormone level. But the only way to get those hormones out of your body is to sweat, pee, or cry them out. So you are going to need to do all 3 of those things. Cry it out, drink a lot of water so you can pee it out, and know that those night sweats are just part of the process. If you have questions, reach out to us. Let's talk a little bit about the postpartum, what it feels like to give birth, what it feels like for your body, for your bleeding, and know that we have a lot of support and resources for what this really looks like. And it is different, it is unique, and you are not alone here.